Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of Capital Update. Today's a very special show for us, as for the first time as I've been host of this show, we have all three representatives from 33. So I'd like to introduce you to Representative Jerry Hertaus from 33A. Welcome, Jerry.
Welcome, Randy. Glad to be here.
Well, great to have you. Representative Cindy Pugh from 33B. Welcome, Cindy.
Thanks so much, Randy. Happy to be here.
Well, and Senator Dave Osmek, representing all of 33.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being on board.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it'd be really great, especially because we had redistricting just occur, if each of you would just quickly tell what area you represent, the cities. You would know them better than I would, just so that when the viewers are watching here, they have an idea. If they have a question, who to contact, they know who to contact. And Dave, you'll just be everybody. But for Cindy and Jerry, if you wouldn't mind doing that just quickly so the viewers know.
Well, sure. Thank you. Well, 33A, after the redistricting, has become a much larger area. And Greenfield and Corcoran from the 32B came into 33, so the northern part got bigger and it's a little more rural. And also we had some of the areas south, east, kind of went out to the Minnetonka side. So we're representing the cities of Wayzata, Minnetrista, Orono, Long Lake, St. Bonnie, Medina, Maple Plain, Greenfield, Corcoran, Loretto, Maple Plain. So it's about 11 cities in total, in about 225 square miles and about a third of Hennepin County.
Okay, and not that this is an important topic, but I do want to just point out that, Representative, you were in 32 before this, and redistricting brought you in, and you were the past mayor of Greenfield.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
Thank you for running.
Yeah, thank you.
Cindy?
Yes, well, 33B covers the piece of Chanhassen that my husband and I built our home in 25 years ago. So it's north of Highway 5, and then it's east of 41 and west of 101. And there are 10 distinct communities within 33B. So the piece of Chanhassen that I just mentioned, Shorewood, Greenwood, Deep Haven, Excelsior, Tonka Bay, Spring Park, Mound, Minnetonka Beach, and one precinct in Orono. So basically it's the greater Lake Minnetonka area all around the lake with the exception of Wayzata.
Okay. So, and the one precinct in Orono, so you guys share one town?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
Correct.
Perfect. And David, you cover all of that.
I get them all.
So, and anything you want to add is?
No, it's a great district. I'm very, Randy and I have been together for many years on many different events and committees, and this is a great district to be in as a representative of people. There's so many good, solid people that just want to have government spending restrained, stay away from them, and give them the freedoms that they want so they can raise their family, raise their kids, and enjoy life.
Perfect. Well, one thing I thought would be really great is, last week, and just for a little timestamp there, you were all sworn in for the start of the session. Last Tuesday. And when we start the new session, you also start getting your committees. I thought maybe we could start in reverse order on this. David, why don't you start and talk about what committees you were appointed to and what your expectations are?
Sure. I was appointed to Transportation and Public Safety, which was my number one choice. So I'm really enjoying that one so far. I was also appointed to, I'm very much I originally grew up west of here, and I was a farm boy for 18 years, basically. So I also want, and half the district, which is the A side, really is very agriculture. I wanted to have some level of ag component, and I was put on the ag, energy, and economic development committee, which is the finance committee, and so anything that is finance related has a fiscal note goes through it. So it's a very important committee. I'm also on energy and environment, which is going to be dealing with the DNR, watershed districts. We've already talked to some commission candidates, commissioners that are going to be coming through for committee or for confirmation through the Senate. So all three committees I'm very excited to be on, and very happy to be there.
Perfect. Thanks, David. Representative?
Yes, well, I am just delighted with the committees that I've been assigned to serve on as well. I have been assigned to the Civil Law Committee, the Judiciary Committee, and Government Operations. And based on what I understand, most all of the bills of significance will be coming through Government Operations. So it's going to be a great place to have an opportunity to weigh in on on bills that are going to be of significance to a majority of Minnesotans. Civil law has been very interesting. I love the content so far, the presentations that have been made before the committee. There is a significant component of the implementation of the Affordable Care Act and the exchanges in Minnesota. And there are data practices which will be a significant component of civil law. And data practices and privacy are going to be of concern, exposure of one's privacy, of concern to Minnesotans. So I look forward to heightening awareness of that and really understanding what impact that will have and sharing that. And also with regard to the Judiciary Committee, and I guess the government ops, we had a presentation by the executive director of the Legislative Commission on Public Pensions. And this is a matter that I campaigned on. I've been very concerned about the billions of dollars of unfunded public pension liabilities, and very committed to looking for a way to make good, to absolutely honor all the promises that have been made. But I strongly believe we're on the wrong trajectory as a state, and I look forward to identifying and offering solutions to help right us. So have my work cut out for me, and I'm excited about it.
You mentioned two things just to dwell on this. The exchanges that you've mentioned in your second committee is something I think people should be very aware of, because that topic and conversations can be had often, early, and long.
Absolutely, and in multiple committees. And this is something I know that my constituents are very concerned about the just implementation of healthcare insurance and exchanges here in Minnesota. So I would direct everyone to House File 5. On the state website, and they'll have an opportunity to read it as it's been presented. And I would be delighted to hear from anybody with any issues that they have.
Absolutely.
Thank
and you had another topic that's near and dear to me, and that's the unfunded public pension liability,
Yes.
but we will save that topic for another time.
Great.
So. Representative Hertaus.
Well, thank you, Randy. The committees that I've been assigned to are property taxes, education, and housing. And they're very much related in many ways. Obviously, housing is a little bit more of the HHS budget, and education, another major area of spending. When you take HHS, which a lot of it is spent not only on Medicare and Medicaid and the MinCare programs and some of the things that we provide for those most needy in Minnesota, we have really, if you take $1 out of every spending in Minnesota, 42 cents of it is spent on education, and 46% or 46 cents out of every dollar is spent in HHS. So we've heard some things during the campaign that one of the goals of the Democrats was to lower property taxes, and of course property taxes come back to education. That's part of what you see on your property tax bill. And so there's a lot of things going on in those committees. In the education, during the Republican control, a lot of the committees had been combined so that finance and policy would be really in one committee for the same thing. That got divided up again now with the new majority. So essentially what's going on now is, even though it's strictly limited to finance, a lot of the discussions you have really do affect policy. Mm-hmm. So early childhood development is a topic of discussion in the education finance right now, certainly all day K-12. Those are different types of things, and the committees right now are doing a lot of providing of information and making everybody know and understand where all the money comes from. Property taxes, are one component of it. The income tax is another component. And so they're really kind of interrelated, and I was told that being a past mayor was why I got assigned to property tax, because you have to understand how it's levied and how it's applied and whatnot. So been an interesting thing. In the Housing Committee recently, there was just a bill introduced regarding mortgage foreclosures and consumer protection, and that was a standing room only committee hearing already. Very passionate, very emotional, and all of these things are important to all of our constituents, and especially here in 33, we've got so many school districts, roughly 8 or 9 of them that represent all of 33. And so education is very important to the constituents here, and I hope that we can guide that process along.
Okay. You mentioned one thing that I find to be a little interesting, because when start of the last session 2 years ago, or I guess it's 2 sessions ago, one of the things that we heard was how we were combining committees and we were going to try to make government a little bit more efficient. And I find it very interesting that what you just said, Representative, was not even a blip in the radar, that the committees have swelled this year under the new rule.
Well, I think, again, part of the majority desired to have a greater representation, and it's not exactly a parity of equal number of Republicans or Democrats in terms of how the committee assignments go. It's clearly the majority has a little bit upper hand. So when any legislator has an idea about how to bring a bill forward, most of our constituents maybe don't understand that the first process is to introduce the bill and it has to be heard in committee. And in order for that bill to ever get to the floor, it's got to get out of committee, and with the current majorities the way they are, it's going to be really important for any business that we hope to get done for our constituents is we have to really find a way to reach across the aisle and garner some bipartisan support. So that's partly, I think, what all three of us are doing is we're learning to connect with the other representatives in the caucuses and see where we have some commonality and where we can work together to, do something and represent our district well.
Okay. Representative Pugh,
Yes.
you're waiting to say something.
I have some thoughts. I've been spending this past week, this first week, with every extra bit of time that I have to meet as many of my colleagues as possible from the other side of the aisle. And given the reality of the situation, the makeup of the legislature, in order for any bills that I might be interested in, it is definitely going to need to be something that has bipartisan support. And I can think of a number of things that are not at all partisan issues. And I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle with regard to that, and matters that will be important to my district as well as to Minnesota. So I've really enjoyed.
Are you finding that it's being well received already? And I ask this only for one reason, is that 6 months ago I had the three of you in here with your counterparts that were trying, with the counterpart that was trying to have your seat. And that was the message that I heard from the other side, was that they were going to try to reach across and work together. Are you feeling that already?
Well, I think that my constituents expect for me to work to get done whatever we can get done. And that doesn't mean compromising my principles at all. And I certainly, from all of the door knocking that I've done and the thousands of voters that I've had the opportunity to speak with, I know what their expectations are of me. It is crystal clear, and they can count on me to do what I said that I was going to do. But I am most definitely going to look to identify, and would welcome anybody's feedback if they have ideas with regard to legislation that would be bipartisan. Those would be the perfect kinds of opportunities for me to best represent the district, and the likelihood of them being heard in my committees, specifically, whether it's civil law related, judiciary, or government operations, which again includes almost all, the bills will come through there. I would really welcome that opportunity, and I look forward to doing that.
Okay. Senator.
I think you're going to find that we probably agree with our counterparts on the other side of the aisle probably 70 or 80% of the time. I'll give you some examples, and I'll also give you an example where things haven't started out quite right. Cindy and I went to a Southwest Metro Transit meeting a few weeks ago, and one of the things that they brought up was that they're a carve-out of transportation. They are not Met Transit. They are a separate opt-out system. And they deliver a bus service, basically a high-volume bus service into downtown Minneapolis to serve commuters. Their main hub being in Eden Prairie. Well, what they asked for is they said, there's one thing we've always wanted. We don't understand why we can't get it. Why can't we use the shoulders on 494 between Highway 5 and 394 like every other Met Transit bus gets to use in other parts of the metro? And I thought to myself, I said, that's a really good question. So the next day I went to the office, had my legislative assistant call up Senator Dibble, who's on the other side of the aisle. He's the chair of Transportation and Public Safety. I asked for 5 minutes, went into his office, explained the situation. He said, this makes all the sense in the world. I don't understand why they're doing it. And basically couldn't believe that somebody apparently must have made somebody mad at MnDOT someplace along the line and not allowed them to do this. So he gave me some names. He said, and if they don't want to do it, then you're going to write the legislation I'm going to hear it in committee, and we're going to have it pushed through, and we'll get somebody in the House, which I'd be probably calling one of these two, to sponsor it on the House side, which is just a common sense.
Absolutely.
Improvement to transportation doesn't cost virtually a penny. All you have to do is pay for the signage, and Southwest Transit even said they'd pay for the signage. So it would cost the Minnesota, every place else in Minnesota, nothing. They'd pay for it out of their own budget. And I had actually, a couple days later, I had MnDOT and Met Council come in my office and sit down, and after 5 minutes, they all looked at each other and said, well, why are we not doing this? And they said, we'll get back to you on this, Senator. We'll take care of this for you, which was a really refreshing answer from bureaucrats and from the other side, is that, yeah, there are things that we agree upon.
I'm actually amazed that it wasn't something that was already happening, considering it just wasn't that many years ago. That was 2 lanes versus 3 lanes coming up 494. So thank you, Senator, for taking the lead on that.
So far, so good. I'm optimistic that, and that was in my first week, so I was sort of pinching myself. Geez, I actually got something done in the first week. But now I'll give you the other side. You know, we can be as bipartisan as we want to be, and I think all 3 of us here are willing to work in a bipartisan manner. But we also have to have 2 to tango in this episode. And one thing that came up the second day in the Senate was what was a slash to our budgets for our staff members. And when you look at the numbers, what happened to the DFO when they transitioned from 2010 into 2011, they had people with same pay grades crossing over into the minority. They didn't take any pay cuts. In 2012 to 2013, the minority is now being requested to take an 11 to 40% pay cut for many of those staffing positions. You know, if you want to take something out on me, that's fine. You can certainly come to me. But our staff members are not there to serve just the Republicans in 33. Our staff members are there to serve everyone in Senate District 33. And we don't believe that was entirely fair at all. And we're still working to see if we can work out an agreement. And that's the kind of stuff where, if you want to start things on the right foot, our friends on the other side of the aisle need to treat us as fairly as we treated them in 2011.
That's a great point, Senator. Representative, you look like you were going to add something.
No, not really, other than just I was going to offer some comments about legislation that I am working on and probably will be bringing forth that will be of interest at least to some of the cities here in 33.
I think that's a great thing to start with, and 2 of you think about that a little bit as well. So,
Sure.
Representative.
Well, as a mayor, most of our metro cities, we don't get local government aid. And the property tax levy is really responsible for about 93 to 97% of cities' operating budgets. And with the movement by the left to want to reduce property taxes, part of that means raising taxes somewhere else to offer relief. But one of the things that I thought of was regarding Minnesota state aid highway funds. Currently, the present statutes only award funds based on a specific formula for cities that are over 5,000. Right. So there are 854 cities in the state of Minnesota. 75% of all of Minnesota cities are smaller than 2,500. So that means there's about 200 cities that are consuming all of the Minnesota state aid highway funds in terms of aid. And what I'm going to do, and I've already done some research, if we change that from 5,000 to 2,500, we would bring 83 more cities into the mix, 22 of which are in the 7-county metro area. And there are 4 within 33 that would, if this bill would garner some bipartisan support, which I'm assuming it would because there's a lot of greater Minnesota cities that would also be there. So I'm looking forward to be introducing that legislation soon, and I hope that I can advance it along, and it's an example of where I'll be searching for bipartisan support to move this along, and it could mean tens of thousands of dollars of additional revenue for our city. It's not about raising more money or more taxes, it's just a different formula of how the pot will get divided. It'll be a few more slices.
That was going to be my question to you. Is the pool going to grow then, the pot of money that's going to be divided, or are they going to keep that set at whatever the percentage or formula is, and it's just going to be divided amongst a greater number of communities?
Well, as I get one of the great things we've all come to realize is the House research staff, the Office of Legislative Auditor, all of these other resources, our legislative assistants, that really is a surprise to me as coming to the legislature of how expedient and how fast these people really do respond and get back to you, because the legislative session, although it's several months long, it still ends up being a rather quick time that goes by, and you have to get these bills introduced fairly soon at the front. There's about over 2,000 bills are introduced every year, and fortunately our liberty is not too much jeopardized because only about 100 or so ever make it
Sure.
out of the session as being passed.
And onto the floor.
But the issue of the money, no, not talking about raising taxes or growing more. It's just how the pie is going to get sliced.
So, and I just want to dwell on this for a moment as a mayor of a town that never received any of that aid. And, you know, we did receive LGA, but we never really used it. But anyways, this isn't about me. What about the 200 cities that are now receiving it and their part of that pie is going to get sliced? Do you not think they're lobbyists? These are larger cities in Minnesota. You don't believe their lobbyists are going to be out there fighting against this?
Well, I'm sure there will be special concern or interest, but I think the argument about that is if you're already at 5,000 or larger, you probably already have a larger tax capacity or a larger tax base in which you have a greater ability to generate those funds. So, you know, if the Minnesota Miracle was supposed to, you know, help all of the communities, and we have different pots or different buckets of money, you know, everybody's paying into those taxes.
Right.
But my rationale mostly with regard to the metro cities is because of the jurisdiction and the development patterns of different organizations and governments, we've had a lot of leapfrogging outside of the metro area. And so our metro communities are experiencing a lot of extra traffic in transient to their work. You know, it does take a toll on the roads, and the maintenance issues, you know, matter. So I'm not trying to make it just as an exemption for metro cities only. I'm willing to, initially, you know, I want to bring them all in, and I think that's the angle to bring bipartisan support for the 60 other cities that aren't metro cities that would get help from this too.
So, well, that sounds great. We look forward when we have our update to hear more about
thanks.
that. Representative Pugh?
Yes, well, I am working on a number of bills that will enhance transparency in government. And this is, I think, an excellent example of this being a nonpartisan issue. I think that there are so many who have great ideas, who, if they could easily see where government is spending all of this money, all of these agencies and all of this money, it would be, I think, ideas could become, you know, forthcoming as to how we could skinny back the size of government. You know, the state of Minnesota is the #1 employer in the state of Minnesota, and that is inconsistent with that of other states. So there have to be opportunities for us to pare back. And I think that if we enhance transparency, a lot of people would have some ideas there. I have also signed on to my first bill, and it is a constitutional amendment to never balance the budget again on the back of schools. And I think that this has every potential to be bipartisan. I don't know who the other co-signers are on this bill, but this makes all the sense to me in the world.
So you want to stop the shift?
Stop the shift.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people have heard about this,
Yeah.
and you know, we've made a commitment to schools, and we haven't fulfilled that promise. And that causes all kinds of problems for districts that have to scramble then and borrow money because we as a state didn't pay them the money that we told them we would. So I think that I felt terrific about signing on to that. And I'm going to sign on to another bill as well, something that I was interested in generating, but I heard that it was already in the hopper. So it is a bill that would allow veterans, when someone leaves active military, the government will relocate them to whichever state they want to move to. And Minnesota taxes those benefits. And we are amongst a handful of states that tax those benefits, and no other state treats veterans that way. And I have a great appreciation for veterans, everyone in active military who has, you know, put their life on the line to defend our freedom, and I think that's the very least that we can do. So I look forward to signing on to that bill as well. And
It'll be interesting, again, on the next update to see how those two bills push through and what the final outcome is, because how you
Yes.
see them now may not be how they finally, so this will be interesting.
yes, and I do have one other issue that I'm interested in, and it's not necessarily a bill, but everyone is aware of the Legacy Fund, and that is the 3/8% sales tax.
Yes.
And that was for clean water primarily, and then for the arts. But Lake Minnetonka is the crown jewel of lakes, certainly in the greater metropolitan area, but I would go so far as to say in the state. And there are issues, with regard to the aquatic invasive species, and I am looking forward to delving into that, to working with Representative Phyllis Kahn, who is heading that committee, and to identifying if there are opportunities that we could pursue to receive funding from that already dedicated source. I was not an advocate for hardwiring a tax into our Constitution, but given that this is what it is, I will look for a way to see what we can do to benefit Lake Minnetonka.
Okay. We're starting to run short on time, Senator, but I do want to give you your time as well.
Well, I haven't actually, I'm sort of getting the lay of the land. We've only been there for less than 10 days. I actually ran into an issue, and I think that sometimes that's the best way to go about things, is you actually run into an issue, and I happened to run into this one on a report on Channel 11 about a gentleman who was a juvenile offender who had committed a murder of his mother back sometime in, I believe it was 1995. And through loopholes, he was able to get 13 different guns legally through 2 different sets of permits, one in Wright County and one in Carver County. Well, we've got some holes in that background check system. I'm all in favor of people's Second Amendment rights, but I think all 3 of us will agree a person who has been deemed mentally ill, who has been convicted of murder or a disqualifying crime under juvenile statutes should be flagged as not being allowed under our system to actually have a firearm and legally get one through the regular mechanisms. They have disqualified themselves as far as I'm concerned. Especially the mental health component really disqualifies this individual. And now, thankfully, he's in Carver County Jail. And we're going to be doing a roundtable with members of the BCA, Carver County Sheriff, myself, other components, and figure out where did this breakdown happen, find a way to fix it, and then, if necessary, put some legislation in that allows the BCA to get the information they need to flag these individuals, so that we're not allowing them to buy and purchase weapons.
Perfect. Well, that's 30 minutes, and we have to wrap up the show. I know. But Senator, Representatives, I appreciate you so much being on here. I appreciate the effort that you took this last summer running for your seats, all the hours, the shoes that you've gone through, the lit droppings, the parades. It's a huge sacrifice of a summer, but I, for one, am thankful that all 3 of you are in place representing 33 and our A and B side, respectively.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think I could speak for all 3 of us, but I think it's just been a great honor and a privilege for all of our constituents to be able to send us to St. Paul. And it's a great institution, and it's just a wonderful place. And just it's every time you walk into the chambers and walk into our state capitol, it's just a beautiful building, and it's just something that catches your breath every time you go there.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us. And remember, when you want to know what's going on at the Capitol, join us here on Capitol Update.